All aboard! Next stop, Chicago Junction.
Yes, it's time for this month's broadcast of Chicago Junction, the program that takes you through the wonderful world of trains, and with the help of our panel of experts, and sometimes we will have call-in guests or visitors. I am your announcer, Brian Ballou, and this is our boss, the head of the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network, Chief Engineer, Mr. John DeVito.
Well, thank you very much, Brian. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another broadcast of Chicago Junction from the John DeVito Broadcast Center on the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network on Wednesday, October the 9th, the year 2019. Today, the panel will be talking about railroads and model railroads. And now to start today's broadcast, here's our announcer, Mr. Brian. Good evening.
Good evening, and thank you, John. I am your announcer, Brian Ballou, and also sometimes Erzat host. And we'll introduce the panel to you. As I said, I'm Brian Ballou. I am a rail fan. I have been a model railroader most of my life, or I like to think I was, and just put things together and play with it. I'm mostly O-gauge and Garden Railway. But I also did work for the railroad, retired Navy gunner's mate, and volunteer for Operation Lifesaver. I belong to several good organizations like the Cincinnati Cinder Sniffers, Cincinnati Railroad Club, Cincinnati Chapter NRHS, Chicago Chapter NRHS, the Pacific Southwest Railway Museum, and the Reading Company Technical and Historical Society.
Wow.
I knew you'd be impressed.
I'm impressed. Very.
And to my left, I have my associate, Dave Daruska.
Dave Darushka. Yes, Dave Daruska, retired locomotive engineer, vice president of the Black Hawk chapter of the National Railway Historical Society. I run our Facebook page as well, and I am the grand poobah of Chicago Railroad History Month, and happy Chicago Railroad History Month this October. By mayoral proclamation, we are official.
Hoorah.
Hoorah.
I'm Ron Stock, retired librarian, library director from Eisenhower Public Library, serving Norwich Harwood Heights, railroad buff and foamer. Have used Amtrak a lot and enjoy trains over planes.
Good evening. My name is Kevin Berry. I'm a retired Chicago police sergeant, a director with the Chicagoland Lionel Railroad Club, a lifelong Lionel collector and operator, and I have been referred to as a rivet counter when I aggravate Brian.
Hi, this is Doug Kenyuk, adjunct professor at Wright College, longtime rail fan, end scaler, officer in the Short Railroad and Short Lines Club of Chicago, and that's about it.
I'm sorry, the last three introductions, they really had a lot of enthusiasm, don't you think?
I'm trying to save my voice.
For the important stuff.
Well, then I guess we better get it out of the way.
Let's get Doug's important stuff.
All right, few items. Caltran is electrifying between San Francisco and San Jose. They're actually now pouring the foundations for the supports. Their goal is to be up and running on 2022 electric trains.
And they have 2 locomotives to help test the system. A friend just sent me pictures from San Francisco. They bought 2 Amtrak toasters.
Ah.
So right now they're running them with like batteries or something.
No extension cords.
Well, you know how crazy they are. They got them cage wheels.
There we go. Here's one that's near and dear to your hearts. On October 1st, the railroad sued state of Illinois saying you can't legislate how many crew members there are in a train. After Pittsburgh signed the law saying you got to have at least 2 in the cab.
And we'll get into more of that soon.
Yes, we will. We'll talk about that a little later.
So
Yeah, well, basically, the FRA said that they have no reason to continue insisting legally that there be 2 crewmen in the locomotive cab for safety reasons. They see no safety problem at all with just one guy up there. So, of course, the railroads jumped on that right away, and then the state legislators around the country, pretty much pushed by the unions, said, no, wait a minute, we want 2 men in a cab for reasons of safety.
right, and it's going to come down to, is it union versus management versus interstate commerce? It's going to be a mess.
And the lawyers will win.
Oh, yeah. They always win. And as you might suspect, the Canadian Pacific and the Illinois Tollway have asked for another 60-day extension for negotiation. This time they say they might wrap up by January 31st of 2020. Notice the word might.
Right. Well,
And so say all of us.
and again, we might have cars like on the Jetsons before they even get to that point.
Well, they're going ahead with the ramps over York Road.
Yeah.
And the piece that runs along Thorndale is almost done.
Mm.
And the part they're fighting is where it swings south along Green Street. So that's what
Was
they're
that
fighting over.
was that green or greed?
Yes. And finally, another new Illinois short line, the Illinois Terminal Belt, running between Hayward and Clinton, Illinois. It's a 3-town Grange railroad, basically, run by Motive Power Inc. Motive Rail Inc.
Yeah.
If we get the right company.
Yeah.
That's it. Not
That's
much
it.
this time.
Whoa.
Whoa.
Hey, Ron.
Okay.
Hey,
Couple- Couple of model railroad open houses that are going to be taking place in November. The first Saturday in November, the Oak Park Society of Model Engineers will have an open house at their Dole Learning Center, and they're in the basement of the Dole branch of the library at Oak Park, and it's 255 Augusta, and it's an HO layout. Another November one is the Lake County Model Railroad Club is having a fall open house. They're November 16th and 17th from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. And they're going to have free admission and also raffle prizes available. And that's at the Lake County Model Railroad Club, located at 107 South Main Street, Wakanda, Illinois, beneath the Honey Hill Coffee entrance. And it's at the rear of the building. In addition to that, the Chicago Northwestern Historical Society is presenting their annual Chicago area get-together. They're going to be also on Saturday, November 16th from 2 p.m. to 9 p.m., and it's going to be at Riverview Banquets, 1117 North Washington Avenue in Batavia, Illinois. Located on the east side of the Fox River, just south of Fabian Parkway on Washington Avenue, also known as Route 25. And they'll have displays. They're also going to have dinner. The cost of the event is $27 per person before November 8th and $32 after November 8th. And there will be a couple of presenters. 2 presentations. One is going to be at 3 in the afternoon, the Northern Illinois, by Bill Shopkin.
Shatopkin.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
And After dinner, there will be a presentation, Off the Clinton We Go, by Philip Weber. And so anyway, both of those events are available. You can send your money in that to Charles Stats, S-T-A-T-S, at 1104 South Oak Park Avenue, Oak Park, Illinois, 2004. And you can register for that particular event. There were in Trains magazine, there were 2 articles. 150 years, in addition to the laying of the Golden Spike, Westinghouse air brakes are celebrating a 150-year anniversary. And of course that led to one of the great safety inventions in railroading. And they also had on the cover of this particular magazine, they show a boxcar, which you may or may not see as many of them, but the article is The Demise of the Single Carload and What to Do About It. I don't think there's much we can do about it. It's what the railroads want to do about it. And Class 1 seemed to be getting away from the boxcar, whereas, according to Brian, the smaller railroads are still using them quite a bit and have quite a bit of capacity. So, but anyway, it was an interesting article about that. In addition to that, they had an article about the Canadian Pacific Railroad. And the first true continental was more than just a railway, and it leaked the nation. And of course, that's in Canada. And it's about a 10-15 page article. It was very excellent article about building the railroad through Canada, and
it produced a very good song for Gordon Lightfoot.
Okay. I'm going to have to...
Railroad Trilogy.
Oh.
What was the song again?
Railroad Trilogy.
Oh, Railroad. Okay.
Do not ask Brian to sing it.
Oh, hell no.
And one of the things they pointed out, which is Kicking Horse Pass, which has a big couple of tunnel networks and some, like 2 or 3 different loopbacks, which is in the province of, I believe, Alberta. And I've actually saw that, but it was back in the 70s. So anyway, those were a couple updates. Oh, and then I ran across the new magazine that I got at one of my hobby shops. It's if you're a collector of railroad plates, all kinds of knickknacks that they have. They have lock sets, locking devices, all different things that collectors sell that are railroad related, especially the plates and china and things like that. The name of the magazine, and it takes off on the Railroad Express symbol, is Railroadmania.
Railroadiana.
Railroadiana, okay.
I think it's mania.
Put a bucket over Dave's head again.
And it's quite an interesting magazine. I've got my hobby shop person was getting it, and he gave me some of his old copies. So it's pretty cool. It's got a lot of interesting stuff in it on all different railroads, all different collectors. Everything from buttons down to your favorite railroad, whether it be their China or their Northern Pacific, Great Northern, New York Central, etc. And they have some cool photographs in it too. So anyway, it's a good thumb-through magazine, especially for somebody who's interested in railroad history.
Yeah, and if you want to go see a good collection, go down to Monon, Indiana, and go to a place called the Monon Junction.
Okay.
It is a museum. The gentleman that started it has a couple of rock quarries down there, and this whole collection got started because he bought one of the aluminum hoppers that Southern Railway had, and they were going to scrap it, and so he bought the hopper and dressed it up out in front of one of his quarries, and then he ended up started collecting lanterns. Has over 5,000 lanterns.
What?
Wow.
He's got several prototypes. I didn't realize there were that many different ones. And then he ended up building a restaurant and museum. He's got plate collections in there if you want to see the china. He has a friend who had a watch collection.
Mm.
So it's actually in the restaurant behind a glass case. Besides, there seems to be the requisite G-gauge train running on the ceiling. You go in. He literally got a hold of several, almost about I think a dozen wooden flat cars, and he's been rebuilding them. And he's putting them on display outside on his property, outside the restaurant, and finding loads to put on them. He's got some boxcars, cabooses that have all been restored.
So he's the one with the Monon crane?
Yeah.
Okay.
He has 2 stations on his property. He literally went trackside and found an abandoned station, took it apart board by board, and he's rebuilt them on his property. One is Pennsylvania, and that is outside. Inside the building is an Illinois Central one. A friend of his had his basement all from collecting stuff that were inside freight stations. And so he had a complete office set up from inside the station, and it fits inside this IC station. And when you walk down, you have basically 2 plexiglass walls to prevent you from touching everything else. But he's gotten all the pads, the telephones, everything out of it, the complete telegraph. And he's got it all set up inside the museum. And one corner set up dedication for all the different fire alarms and such, because he was interested he was a volunteer fireman.
So can you order your meal with a telegraph?
You can try. You can try. But it is very...
The problem is finding a Harvey girl to serve it.
He doesn't have them yet. But yeah, it was a very interesting place. And I suggest, you want to take a nice little drive, that would be a place to go
How
to.
far is it from Chicago, would you say?
Less than 3 hours.
Oh, so you could probably do it in all day.
If you're looking at where Monon is, it's north of Lafayette.
Okay.
I could post a link to that because I have it on the static website.
Oh, okay.
Do that.
The outside pictures, not the inside.
Okay.
But there's a map,
Yeah.
coordinates,
Yeah.
GPS coordinates, and so on.
They probably have a website too, I'm sure.
They do.
Yeah.
Well, we'll post a link to that too.
Yeah, it was kind of neat. I ended up going to the place in 15 when I was traveling with the Lincoln car, and with the Leviathan all. He pulled the owner wanted us to pull right in his parking lot so everybody could see the locomotive sitting there on the truck.
Free advertising.
Basically, yeah.
Right. Dude, oh yeah. Okay, let's talk a little bit about Chicago Railroad History Month and our big upcoming event, which is going to be October the 23rd, which is a Wednesday at noon at Chicago Union Station in the Burlington Room, which is the former Fred Harvey restaurant. We will be having a unveiling of our first ever Chicago Railroad History Month poster done by artist Mitch Markovitz, who has done a number of pretty well known in rail art industry, and it's open to the public. So
What time?
it's noon.
Noon.
Yeah. And I will be sending out invites to everybody here on the panel, but and I'll post it on our Facebook page and a couple other Facebook rail groups that I belong to. We're hoping to get some media attention this time. We've been banging on their doors for over a year now, actually going on 2 years, and hopefully we can get some people to come out and give us some publicity for the projects that we are doing. One of the other things that I was looking into is the famous time capsule at the Northwestern Railroad buried at the railroad fair back in '48. They buried a time capsule at the site of the Kinzie Street Station, which was the first train station in Chicago, part of the Galena and Chicago Union Railroad. I had gotten a message from somebody on our Chicago Area Railroad Historians group, or maybe it was on the Chicago Railroad History Month group, that the time capsule had been removed when the property was sold and moved out to Proviso Yard and buried at the top of the hump. Well, I've been in touch with the people from the Chicago Northwestern Historical Society, and no one there has any knowledge of that, and they still believe that the time capsule is buried there. And they have been in touch with the developer who has purchased the property. It is currently a parking lot, and they plan on building something there, and they've asked them to please, when they go start digging up the property, if they find a time capsule, to rescue it. It would go out to Union, Illinois Railway Museum. The Northwestern Historical Society is building an archive facility there for their archives, so they would probably have it on display there. I found that the tender wheels for the Pioneer locomotive are out at Monticello. sitting all alone by themselves. Well, somewhere in the yard somewhere, they're out there. So I just sent an email out to them saying, hey, would you guys, if you're not planning on doing anything with them, would you be willing to donate them to the Northwestern Historical Society so they could display them out at Union? I'd actually like to get one to display out there at Kinzie Street as part of a memorial. One of the things I want to do is have another historic plaque placed there. There was a plaque there at one time. It disappeared. No one knows what happened to it. Probably somebody took it. It was metal. Figured it was worth something. Took it to a scrapyard and got 20 cents for it. So that's one of the, there's a bunch of ideas that I have for things that I'd like to do in the years leading up to 2023, which is the 175th anniversary of the first running of the Pioneer. What date? Well, I've got October dates and I've got November dates.
Yeah, you said you're
Yeah, October 25th and November something. And it's like, depending on what history you read, I was just looking at an older history of the Chicago Northwestern, and they mentioned a November date, and then I believe it's the Chicago History Museum lists October, the 25th. Well, it'll be 2 days after we have our poster thing, but we'll be promoting that. And also, I had an email today from the National Park Service at Pullman, and they would like to have a table at the October event to pass out information about what they're doing. And I said, oh, sure, definitely. They were kind enough to pass out flyers for us at the Big Boy event in West Chicago. And I'd like to do more with them. They're going to be opening up the admin building in 2020. They're in the process of restoring the building, and I'd like to get more involved with them. So we'll keep them close.
definitely.
Yeah.
One of the projects they're talking about with the admin building is they want to put a prototypical track plan in there that would show how the cars went through. That would be a lot of trackage because the old wheelhouse used to be down at 104th and Maryland Avenue.
Right. Well, Chicago and West Pullman Railroad. No, that was Pullman's little railroad until it was divested from him. But
West Pullman was Wisconsin Steel.
was it? Oh,
Pullman had a railroad called Pullman,
oh, Pullman,
which
okay.
was sold to the Rock Island.
Okay.
And then when the Rock Island bellied up, it became Chicago Rail Link.
Ah.
I'll
Well, thank you for that,
20,
Mr. Shortlines.
25 years ago, made it up to the Mid-Continent Railway Museum up in North Freedom, and they had a small work engine up there that was actually painted up for Pullman. So it was probably a little shunter they used for moving single cars around on the company property. So, you got anything else, Uncle Dave?
No.
I got a couple of things. On Thursday, October 10th, which unfortunately will be after this program airs, Blue Pine Rail is running a special from Indianapolis to Chicago behind the Amtrak Cardinal in the private car Frank Thompson. The car is a former Pennsylvania Railroad observation car that was built in 1949 and remained on active service until 1967. The trip will have been sponsored by the 20th Century Railroad Club. It's $200 per person. So there are rail trips out there and available if anybody is interested in actually riding a train. In the October 3rd issue of the Red Eye magazine was a little ad placed in the general information column stating that CN, Canadian National, is looking for model railroaders to assist in building a N-scale layout in on the CN campus in Homewood. The layout will be a training aid for in-service and new hires with little or no railroad background. They are looking for hobbyists who are willing to volunteer their time with the following skills: carpentry, track laying, wiring, landscaping, and knowledge of wiring a DCC system. It will be an N gauge. They are looking to have different sections of the track operate in CTC and ABS. Depending on the project, that will either be standard work hours or non-standard hours, and if you happen to be working standard day hours, lunch is provided. If you want to look at the actual article, it is on page 34 of the Red Eye, listed under general information, and that's the 3rd of October edition, the one that talks about hitting all the sandwich shops. It sort of looks like there might be a falafel sandwich on the front cover. The other thing is that on October 16th, Amtrak will have a vacation webinar. It will be aired at 9 a.m., 1 p.m., and 4 p.m. Central Time. You have to go on Amtrak's website and sign up to participate, but they're doing a big job of marketing their vacations. And this morning I had breakfast with a group of surprisingly pleasant retired police officers, and one of them handed me a 4-inch patch for Illinois Rail Safety Week, which was September 22nd through 28th. and it's the 6th annual Rail Safety Week. And there is an Amtrak engine on it. It good looking engine, the newer paint job. It also indicates Illinois Operation Lifesaver, and I was handed a challenge coin from the Illinois Association of Chiefs of Police that matches the logo on the patch.
We have a correction here. It's an Amtrak, a Metro locomotive.
Did I say Amtrak? I'm
Yes, you
sorry.
did.
Metro.
But Amtrak was one of the big sponsors.
Oh, yeah. I mean, a lot of the police agencies in the state, along with all the railroad police and, of course, Operation Lifesaver.
Well, it's a beautiful patch. The challenge coin appears to be more plastic than metallic this year, but they did have a nice metallic one last year with a big UP engine on it. But we had the open house for the train club, and I printed up notices for National Rail Safety Week and had them in 2 or 3 places around the layout. So hopefully people will think and give railroad tracks and crossing gates and trains their due respect, because unfortunately when the train hits you, it's tag, you're dead. Oh yeah, I'm sorry. For those of you that have extremely good ears, you can see the small tree in the middle of the table with the Ford Anglia up in the branches. Diecast Direct is carrying a 143 scale white over blue Ford Anglia that starred in the Harry Potter movie, and it comes with Harry and Ron. When they missed the Hogwarts Express at track 9 3/4, they had to borrow Ron's dad's Ford Anglia and fly to school until they unfortunately parked in the Whomping Willow. But it's a cute little car, and if you got the Hogwarts Express, or you've got Thomas the Tank Engine, or any of his associates for your kids, it'd make a cute addition to your layout.
Where'd you get it?
Diecast Direct. I believe it was $24.99 plus shipping. It was a whimsical purchase. It'll be going out to the club, and it'll be on the little layout with Thomas and his buddies and the Hogwarts Express for October.
Whoa.
Hey. They even did the move it right, because if you look at it, Ron Weasley's wand is broken, just like it did in the movie. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Leonard Bolton Jr.
2 thumbs up.
And hello, Ron.
Good afternoon.
Welcome.
It's been a while.
Yes, well, it's good to see you out and about.
I imagine you took the streetcar. That's what took you so long.
I thought maybe this was a model of one of your shortcuts.
Yeah.
Looks like an old Rambler. That's what it looks like. That's what I thought it was.
It does look a bit like a Rambler, yes.
Beep, 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 beep. His horn went beep, beep, beep.
Yeah, after I was up on Cuyahoga Valley, taking a nice ride through alongside that canal and having a dinner. It was ended up going to a little museum and had to become a member. It was only $20, but now I'm attraction buff, I guess,
Good.
for the Northern Ohio Railway Museum.
I've been there. It's a nice one.
Yes, They are. The people are really great, and they're starting to make progress laying track
Good.
and wire.
Good.
Let's talk about the real railroad industry out there.
Well, is it real?
Is it real? Right. Yeah, the latest. Another thing I wanted to talk about was Metra's new heritage locomotive Burlington paint scheme, and I've commented on it extensively on our Facebook page. And
I have yet to see it.
you're not missing anything. Truly, not missing anything. It is nowhere near close to looking like a Burlington Heritage unit. I mean, not silver, it's gray. Yeah, it's not silver, it's gray. They put CB&Q logo on the nose. They have the little vents on either side of the headlight. Yep. And they have basically Metra on it twice. Big letters in the back and small letters underneath the cab, and a big Metra swoop, so people don't forget. You know, commuters, they get confused. They see something that doesn't look like a Metra engine, they're not going to get on the train. They're going to go like, well, wait a minute. That's a Burlington train. We're confused. So they're continuing in their efforts to give a bad name to heritage locomotives, because so far everyone they've done has been total caca. Trains Magazine online showed images of the New Jersey Transit units.
Whoa! Yes.
That are awesome. Yep. Absolutely awesome. They went and they consulted with rail history groups, and they did it up right.
In the fact, well, let's see. They took one of their GP 40Ps that was delivered in 1967 and still running, and had it just repainted it to its as delivered colors for the Jersey Central.
So the other two locomotives are newer passenger locomotives. One is painted in an Erie Lackawanna paint scheme, and the other one is in a Pennsylvania paint scheme. And my understanding is it's paint and decals. What do they call them? I guess they're decals, right?
Oh, the whiskers?
Yeah.
No, they were.
No. When they
the striping?
wraps.
The wraps.
Yeah.
Oh, like vinyl wrap?
Vinyl wrap. Yeah, they use some of this stuff as vinyl wrap. But they're really attractive. They're really beautiful, and it shows when you have pride in something. You take the time and you do it right.
Yeah, and then they took 5 coaches and painted symbols on the bi-levels, big brackets saying for which railroad.
Oh wow!
Yeah, whether it be the Delaware Lackawanna, Jersey Central, or Erie Lackawanna, and then Pennsylvania and Reading Shoreline.
You know, Pace has done something like that with some of their buses. They're taking their present fleet and they're redesigning the sides with the wrap and everything, so they look like an old Orion bus or an old GM fishbowl bus. But that's what the wrap looks like. If you're into buses or in the streetcars or like we are into trains, you know, we understand that. But the first time I saw one, I was looking like, who the heck painted that thing? There's enough old buses out there. They can pick up an old GM or two and restore it and paint it whatever color they
and
want.
Make it their historic collection.
Look like Evanston or look like Wilmette.
Look at the collection of buses they got out at IRM.
Oh yeah.
And the CTA has a heritage fleet as well.
No,
both transit cars and buses.
Yes, they had a downtown Chicago. They brought 2 of them out a week ago on Tuesday, and they had 2 of the people called them spam cars, but it was the cars that the former PCCs that ran on the streets.
Mm-hmm.
When they took them off, they gutted them. They were originally going to try to run those on the L, but the design wasn't going to work, so they just stripped all the parts off and they built the new L cars. Those are the ones that we all knew.
Those were the sides of the cars.
Right.
And they cut them to fit.
Yeah, no, they couldn't. No, they just took the components out. The actual shells were just scrapped.
Well, I thought they cut out the sides of
No.
them and then.
No.
Ah,
They didn't. They put all the windows and the
Learn
lights.
See,
something
now
new
that-
every day.
Yeah, no, you know. Okay, so see, we're squashing the rumors.
So they had two of them out. They were retired in '92, and it was the first time they were out for the public last week.
Whoa, that's good.
Yeah, I should have brought it. I got my ticket. I got it in the first ride.
You posted it, right?
Yeah.
It's on our
Yeah.
Facebook
It's on our
page.
Facebook page.
First time I saw one of the CTA Christmas buses, I almost took a fire hydrant off at curb level. They take a standard bus and dress it up like a reindeer
Mm-hmm.
with antlers and a big red nose, and they take out a couple of rows of seats on the inside, and there's a Santa chair, and it goes around. I've seen it only at public schools. It may go to other places, but it pulls up right next to the school, and it's the Santa bus.
You've seen the CTA's L train, right? The holiday train.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Now they got two of them. One follows the other. The main one is with Santa. In the middle of it, well, they got six passenger cars, and in the middle they got one of the flat cars that they use for construction, whatever. And they've got a sleigh on there, and Santa actually sits out there in all weather, whether it's snowing, rain, whatever. He's sitting on that flat car.
Mm-hmm.
And because it's so popular, they have a second train that, what do they call it? The
I think that's the Elf Express.
Elf Express. Thank you. Yeah, and it's designed the same way, all the flashing lights and everything, just to pick up the people that couldn't get on the first one.
If you go on the CTA's website in late November, they publish the dates that which train will run on which line.
Yes.
They out at the train club, the guy that built out did the diorama work for the Union Station at the east end of the belt line. Talked to another member who's in a 3D printing club into printing girders and curbs and everything. And there's an L train that runs, and I was coerced into building a Santa car for them to put on the L train. So November, December, and January, there is a Santa car in the middle of the L train.
And if you haven't been out to their clubhouse, that L looks very realistic.
Ah.
Yes.
The
Very good, yeah.
the guy who did the printing did a lot of work to make it as realistic as possible. And the guy who did the diorama work is a mad genius. And he actually found the vehicles and restaged the Blues Brothers chase under the Lake Street L. And he's got plexiglass up so that no one can do the 50-foot man and reach in and grab a car. But that's Jeff Mills, and he's just a mad genius.
Geez, why don't you have him do the chase with Steve McQueen hanging off of one of the pantographs?
Trolley poles.
Excuse me.
Thank you.
Because we don't have the Chicago River.
No, he did it along with the Skokie trains.
He had a couple 6,000s that he did. Yeah.
It's we have what we have, and there's only so much space. and besides, I don't know if we want to build the Emerald City Express as part of the layout. Or am I the only guy at the table that will admit to remembering the Skokie Express referred to as the Emerald City Express?
Well, see, I never heard of that because I didn't grow up in Chicago.
That's right. You led a depraved childhood.
That's right. I can't help
You
it.
got-
I
you-
had to live next to the Pensy Broadway.
You
And
got
look at all them GG ones.
you got to play with all those big gray ships when you were a kid.
No, actually, my dad tried me with the Marines, but he wouldn't let me join.
Well, so let's
Brian,
talk about crew consists.
Ah, yes.
The big deal here is that the railroads want to go down to a one-man crew. They want to have an engineer-only train. They want to haul 200 and 300 cars with only an engineer in the front because they say it's safe. And they have actually taken an adversarial position with the union that represents the conductors and the trainmen, SMART, and they have sued them, saying that they must have this as part of their contract negotiations, that they will agree to single man crews. That it's not going to be, that's not negotiating. That's basically saying this is what we're offering you, and there are no negotiations involved, and you must accept it because the courts are going to say you have to accept it.
I still laugh at that.
Well, yeah,
Anybody who is foolish enough to say, quote unquote, this is what the courts are going to say, had to grow up on an extraterrestrial planet. Because every day the court says something that is just so outlandish.
But see, that's because that sounds outlandish. That's why they figure they'll get it.
they'll find, what they do is they find a court that is willing to rule in their favor, and then the union finds a court that's willing to rule in their favor, and then they have counter this and counter that, and then the lawyers get involved and
Make a lot of money.
make a lot of money off of whoever. But I have a feeling, I have this is just my gut feeling, is that the railroads will win in the end. They really will. That they will have a lot of publicity and promotion about how safe it is until the first major city that they wipe off the map with a bomb train. And then everybody will be pointing fingers at everybody else as to how did this happen. But this all stems from the FRA ruling that prior to this point in time, the FRA has had a rule that there must be 2 crew members in the cab of a locomotive. They recently changed their minds and said, you know what, we decided that that's not necessary anymore. Most of this comes from positive train control. They say that now that there's going to be positive train control, despite all the accidents and head-ons we've had with positive train control, that it's safe. It's much safer now with positive train control. So there's no reason to have a second set of eyes up in the cab of the locomotive. There's no reason to have a conductor to deal with emergencies. They'll have guys driving around in pickup trucks. Train goes to an emergency, well, where's the guy in the pickup truck? Oh, he's 100 miles away. Well, okay, well, he'll get here eventually. We'll have this town tied up for a day while they put this train back together.
Yeah, see, that's what I can't understand. The states have already have already shut out the laws that they had about how long a railroad can block a crossing, and they've done that without no regard to anything.
Right.
And all of a sudden now, like you say, they're doing at least 2 train sets put together. So you're looking over 2 miles, 2.5 miles, and now, okay, we broke down. Well, the engineer all of a sudden has to leave the cab and walk a train.
Well, the BLE really hasn't weighed in on this yet, I think, and I'm surprised because they do represent trainmen too.
Yes.
But I think that so far they've been letting SMART hold the water on this one and deal with it. But I imagine that at some point the BLE will chime in and say, look, we're not leaving our man up there alone. that's just not safe. It isn't safe, you know. And so,
I mean,
if you get off the locomotive,
that's on the first rule book, right in the
well,
code.
we can change the rules, Brian. You know that. The rules are invented by the railroads. They can change them whatever they want. There's no, you know.
That's true.
And all these states are trying to enact laws that say there must be 2 men in the cab. Well, they're going to run into the interstate commerce rules. They do not rule over interstate commerce. That's a federal area of authority. And if the federal government says, hey, you know, you can have one-man crews, I don't care how many state laws they pass. Not going to mean a hill of beans. You know, what are they going to do? Tell these railroads, hey, you can't run trains through our state?
It's just about as bad as local communities, local suburbs, like right here, Elmwood Park, excuse me, that has a law that the trains can't blow their horns after 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock. Through this area, as many accidents as they've had, but the community says, we don't want to hear the train.
Even with the whistle-free zones, it states in the rules that if you encounter a situation that requires you to blow the whistle, you can.
Oh, they do.
Yeah, of course. You know, I live in a whistle-free zone, and I hear them all the time, you know.
Oh.
Knuckleheads walking in front of the train and stuff.
Well, you know, in Park Ridge, same thing.
Yeah.
The problem comes in is that the railroads are saying, well, look, they're starting to run the crewless trains in Asia and Africa and so on. But you're comparing railroads. If you look at the railroad level, you're trying to compare apples and steel I-beams. Most of the railroads in Europe and in Asia are grade separated.
Right.
The government spent the money up front, or somebody spent the money up front, and grade separated everything. So yeah, you could have the crewless trains. So what? They break down. They're not interfering with anything else. Here, we got tons of grade crossings. So when a train breaks down, it's a major problem.
I mean,
and
you
if you want grade separation in this country, the municipalities bear the burden of the costs.
Yes.
The railroads kick in a pittance.
That's right. That's the main problem with Illinois' high-speed railroad. You know, you look at it, and if you looked at the article, they got like 4 different radio channels to ensure the crossing gates are down before the train gets to the grade crossing. That's 4 more points of failure.
Yeah.
So the grade separating, they just put up some kind of radar and motion detector, and it radios back to the cab of the locomotive, and the locomotive is still like 2 miles away, and they know that the gate's down. And
well, you know, but then that's the problem because, well, they were doing that in California. You know, the high-speed rail track was going to be elevated, and they did all these frivolous court cases on how it's going to screw up the environment. And because it's federal money, eventually it got pulled. Now California's trying to get it back.
Or they could be just like the Bright Line, just run people over and not worry about it.
the good old days.
Yeah, but the thing is, Bright Line's private money.
Yeah.
You know,
That's the key.
I just don't understand.
And yes, the PTC is not proven.
I just don't understand how they think that if, for the sake of argument, we say that a rail car is 70 foot from coupler to coupler, you put 200 cars there, you got 14,000 feet of rolling stock. And you're going to have one person in charge of all of it. Now, is the engineer supposed to pull his train up through the switch, stop it, walk 2.5 miles, throw the switch back to the way it's supposed to be, walk back up to the engine?
No, I think the idea behind what the railroads want to do is put all the conductors on the ground. So they will have they will become utility employees. They'll drive around in trucks, or they'll be stationed at certain areas. I don't know how they plan on saving money on this, unless they're going to lower the pay rate for a conductor.
Well, it goes back to that boxcar article if you read it carefully. And this goes back to there was a special back in the early 2000s about how the railroads are going to be transformed into a conveyor belt. They don't want loose cars. And if you think about containers and unit trains,
Right.
they're just a big conveyor belt. That's all it is. And with that thinking, you don't need crew members.
Yeah, you're not setting out and picking up at industries, sidings.
Exactly.
Small town yards will disappear. Well, not even now.
Loose cars, they call
Yeah,
it.
the way the blocking is done in the main yards, they've done away with humping. You no longer have gravity humps to sort out the trains. It's all blocking. Everything's being blocked. Of course, they don't block them right, but
How does a container box compare to a boxcar as far as cubic feet?
well, it's not so much the cubic feet. It's what you have to do with it. You know,
Yeah.
if you get a container, you have to take it to container terminal, offload it to a truck. Then the truck takes it to its final
I
destination.
understand that part of it, and it may be an apples and oranges kind of argument, but how many cubic feet in a boxcar compared to how many cubic feet in a 53-foot long, 108-inch container box?
Well, we can go
Are
back.
they comparable, or does the
No,
boxcar hold a lot
A
more?
lot more, but the railroads are trying to get away from carload freight. They don't want to deal with carload freight anymore. They've been convincing shippers to go away. They don't want the scrap metal business anymore. They don't want to deal with scrap metal cars. They don't want to have to pick them up. They don't want to deal with it. They just want to run train from point A to point B. And that's it. They don't want to deal with customers. They don't see any, and they're losing money left and right. I mean, it's crazy. The railroads are being run by bean counters that have no idea what railroads do.
Wall Streeters, the money men, the people that think they know, even those, that are stockholders, they're all millennials now. And that's where, they don't know the concept of railroading, what it was for.
Yeah, well, the railroads are not interested in customer service, and it is a lot of shippers are starting to complain about the kind of service they're getting from the railroads.
I mean, they're sitting in Washington complaining, and there's going to be a big hoo-ha going on down there when the shippers get into town.
So it's the international conspiracy of bankers.
And the deep state.
And the
Can't forget that.
Illuminati.
Illuminati.
Like I said, the ghosts of J.P. Morgan, the Vanderbilts, Gould, they're all sitting back laughing. Hey, it's happening again.
So one other thing I want to touch on, and this is something that Metro and the UP have reached an agreement with the western suburbs about fencing a sound barrier. Was it through a forest park? Is it, or park forest?
River Forest.
River Forest. They finally agreed to build a barrier, a sound barrier, to make the people in the suburbs happy.
Oh, the old tollway vanity fences.
Yeah, they want to add a third track where there is currently 2 tracks, and the people out there were up in arms about having trains parked next to their house, and their house hasn't moved any closer to the train tracks. I don't know how 1 track over is going to make any difference. And I thought the idea of adding a third track was that there wouldn't be parked trains, that they could move trains more efficiently.
That's the way it was supposed to be on the CP. Howsomever.
They got some of that third track already built.
Yeah.
Yeah, by First Avenue.
Yeah, there was some stink, too, about they had an access road that they were using for construction, and the people were complaining about how easy it was for people to walk up to the tracks.
Well, don't walk up
It's
there.
trespassing. Duh. Duh. How would you feel if somebody walked through your yard and used it as a shortcut? Hey, you know what? This is a great shortcut, and I'm going to use it. And I don't care what you think, and I don't care that you have property rights. I'm just going to walk across it. Yes, sir.
Brian, you have any steam news?
Yeah, right. Are we done ranting and raving here?
Yeah, I guess we are. Yeah, I've had it for a couple months now.
Well, Brian got new eyes, by the way.
Yeah, I gotta wear glasses to read now.
Poor baby.
Yeah. You look great.
Yeah, but he can see a redhead at a quarter mile.
Oh, yeah. East Broad Top, is it going to have some activity this year?
What?
Yes. They're putting together an event that'll take place on November 2nd, beginning at 1 p.m., with a dinner break at 4:30, and have, basically, it's going to be get out everybody, photographers. They're going to break out a couple of locomotives, put them on display, run their Brill electric unit, gas electric, and go get some shots at different sessions along the right-of-way, going out to Cottage Grove. And the cost is going to be $149 per person. And that includes the meal. And dinner will be available for a donation of $15 at the Rail Bed and Breakfast. For reservations, you can get a hold of Lawrence B. Miller at bmiller@mac.com. BIEMILLER at mac.com.
So what's their goal here?
I'm starting to, bring people out.
They want to start it up again.
Yes.
Who owns it?
The family still owns it. The Jarvitz, Jacob Barvitz, the scrapper owns it.
The scrapper.
Is
The scrapper who wouldn't scrap
and
it.
they've been slowly, they want to raise money because they're still, the friends of the East Broad Top have been buying mileage.
Ah.
So they're buying it all. They started at Mount Union and they're working their way back to Orbizona. They've been, during the last, for the last 10 years.
Don't let the trail people find out.
They've been rebuilt. They've kept the buildings in good shape, keep them painted, and take people on tours if they show up out there, and then send them to the Trolley Museum at Rock Hill, and which is a very nice ride. Mm-hmm. I like to go out there so I can ride the East Coast Electroliner.
The Brill Liner? Is it a Brill Liner or is that the Electroliner that they...
The Electroliner, the Valley Forge. Yes, I can ride because they kept it in the Valley Forge paint scheme.
Yes, it's still in SEPTA paint.
Yeah, they called them Liberty Liners.
Liberty Liners.
Yeah, the Liberty Liners. The Valley Forge. That's the one I want to see. That's the one I got.
There was some pictures posted. They had it out running last weekend.
Mm-hmm. Plus, they got the first, one of the first San Diego trolleys from when they opened in '81. And they started retiring them. And the first one they sent out went to Rock Hill. So it's riding out there. See? They don't care. But, number 17 will be the one on display, the Mikado. And they're trying to get number 16 out. So let's see if they get that ready. And speaking of getting stuff looking good, like we were talking before, Steamtown has finally got off their tushes with everybody trying to get steam locomotives to work and actually make them look good. The first locomotive they had up on display after a cosmetic restoration was the 2124 Reading T1 Northern. Was on display for Reading Days, and they had the FP units up there also. And what the big news is, they're finally going to have somebody that's going to stay there longer than a year and a half, so they can negotiate a contract with the Delaware and Lackawanna and run some trains.
Good.
So they've got a 5-year. They have a 5-year contract now, and they'll be starting to run passenger trains up the hill out of Scranton. That'll be going on. The next locomotive in there right now is the 4012, the big boy. Speaking of big boy,
Big boy.
You're making
big boy's kicking up the dust.
You're making me hungry.
Oh yeah,
Big boy.
we'll find a Frisch's, or is it Bob's?
Bob's or Mark's.
Okay, you go to Cincinnati, it's Frisch's.
Yeah, they use tartar sauce.
Ah, okay.
There's a good hamburger shop over on Harlem Avenue, just north of Irving.
But right now she's on her way to California. She'll be there on arriving the 10th. In the greater LA area, she's not going to be allowed to go downtown.
Oh.
Too much pollution.
Oh.
It's probably good because somebody'd steal the
they're
wheels.
running. They are going to run 2 excursions. They're running 2 excursions out of there. The people will have to. They will board a bus at Rancho Cucamonga.
Cucamonga.
Yes, but this is Rancho Cucamonga,
Oh, okay.
so we're in the higher district, I guess,
Oh, all right.
than regular Cucamonga, which is just outside of Azusa.
Anaheim, Azusa, and
and
Rancho Cucamonga.
Nah, this doesn't ring.
Yeah, it's just sort of dating us here, aren't we?
But anyway, they are running excursions. They're going to go from West Colton Yards, and they're going to go to Barstow. And then the next day, they'll go from Barstow back to West Colton. And so that means they will go up Cajon Pass anyway. But nobody will get the good trip coming out of L.A. But you go to Rancho Cucamonga, you get on a bus. The bus will either take you to West Colton or Barstow, depending upon the day of the trip. And you come back. Coach seats, only $700. Now, if you want to have the really big experience, dome cars are $1,300. The executive class.
What's that, baggage?
In the observation car
Oh.
for 8 people. But even if you're just one, it will cost you $15,000. You do get a meal and something to drink.
Hopefully it's not an Amtrak meal.
Crackers and water. What Amtrak meals? They got rid of all their meals.
Box lunch.
That's what we're talking about.
Hardtack and Vichy water.
Anyway,
Cold chicken.
I saw the news. They had the news broadcast when it actually came into Vegas and showed the display there on one of the news channels. And they had a nice crowd. They had a real nice crowd. Almost like West Chicago. What an experience.
What a zoo.
He's got ride privileges. He doesn't tell his friends and take his friends with him,
He hides in the tender.
Well, I say, always said it was the best place to ride.
You'll see him handing up the pieces of coal. You'll take this one.
No, he's adjusting the oil. Give us some more oil, Brian. Okay.
Once they leave the on the 18th, 18th will be in Tucson. They'll hit El Paso on the 22nd, 21st and 22nd. And they don't talk about what they've done after that, but I found out that they do. They'll go through Texas and then they'll go into Arkansas and start heading up north.
How long do they plan on doing this?
She's going to be running for the next 5 years.
Really? Oh, wow.
She will be running for the next 5 years.
As long as they can find victims with money in their pocket.
$15,000 for a box lunch and a drink.
Yeah, well, it's being run in conjunction with the Giant of Steam Museum out of Pasadena, where the locomotive came from. In fact, they're working on cosmetically cleaning up the 12-wheeler, the Union Pacific, the 412 too. And let's see. Coming east, we'll go to the Western Maryland, and they've been working over that 2662 Mallet for the C&O. Last Baldwin built locomotive for domestic use in 1949. And every time they keep looking like they're going to put it back together, they need more money.
Surprise.
Yeah, well, it turns out they're still looking for the guy that's in charge, John Gardner. He's really not a big fan of rebuilding this locomotive. He really didn't want to do it. But he's been, slowly, he's stuck with it. So you can tell by the way he talks. But he says, they need parts. And the thing is, every time they need ready to go, they find it's another part missing. And
not like that locomotive that lost all its brasses to one of the museum members. Was that it?
That's it.
Oh God.
And that's why they keep looking for. And all of a sudden, they need $39,000. So this way, it can be machined and installed. The last remaining part of the rear engine, a driving box, must be purchased at a cost of $39,000. And hampering the restoration effort had been the 2018 employee theft. After 5 years of work, now they've spent over $207 million, or $2.7 million. They need now they're figuring, $39,000 for that one part alone. They're still talking $100,000 to $150,000 to finish off, and then $80,000 alone to install a coal storage and ash removal system required by West Virginia environmental regulations.
The snowflakes again.
Yeah, the engine's in much worse shape than believed when the restoration began.
Surprise.
We're hoping our supporters, people who want to see this engine back again, will push us over the top. Until more money is raised for the engine, we're focusing on time renewal program that local governments had funded for. And they hope to have a desire to see sometime next year. It's a shame this engine's being treated like that.
Between the NIMBYs and the snowflakes, it's a miracle anything's allowed to operate.
Virginia and Truckee news. Now, because in honor of Virginia and Truckee's 150th anniversary, I didn't realize that. Another one that had 150 years.
Yeah.
The passengers can now experience special anniversary trains. Well, that was last month up until October 11th, which will be Saturday. Or no, Friday. The 150th anniversary of the V&T Railway is a momentous occasion, and we're offering these historic train rides. And they're sharing it with the regions, and passengers will ride in the restored 1914 Pullman coach led by 280 VT engine number 29, built by Baldwin. And they get to see the views of Virginia mountain range, abandoned mine shafts, old mill sites, and possibly wild Mustang sightings. No chupacabras, no jackalopes.
Oh, but mine shafts. Ooh.
A jackalope would have to be on vacation to be seen out there.
The initial, let's see, commemorating the 50th anniversary of Michigan State University Club and their initial restoration of 280 Pierre Marquette 1225 with an all-day excursion behind this world-famous locomotive. This trip will operate on the 44th anniversary of 1225's first fire-up at its site on the MSU's campus, which took place on October 5th, 1975. This was the accumulation of 6 years of restoration work by the MSU Railroad Club, as the engine was known for 22 years at that time. The passengers will board the Cadillac Limited as at the Mountain Town Brewing Station at Mount Pleasant and for a 10 a.m. departure on this round-trip excursion to Cadillac. For ticket information, go to MichiganSteamTrain.com. Tickets, reservations, Cadillac Limited. And that is about it.
Wow.
The next time we get together to do the show will be 3 weeks after the wife and I ride behind a 1225. So hopefully I'll have some neat 1225 stories.
Okay. The one thing we have not talked about a lot, we kind of got away from it because there was nothing to talk about because there was no good train movies made. But there has been literature and everything else in. And I came across this really neat little ghost story poem called Ghost Train. And I thought we'd close out the show with it.
All right.
Ah, the ghost train. Oh, hark, the ghost train's distant roar, its engine's moaning groan. The witching hour is close at hand, so don't be out alone. Shades lurk within the ancient woods, for it is All Souls' Night, and those who are dead travel fast, their groans fill one with fright. The dreadful train arrives on time, and Hermes, son of Zeus, the god who wears the wing cap and shoes, gets off the old caboose. The herald bellows all aboard, a waking night, sleeping dead, to journey to the nether realm, where spirits of men dread. Appalling wraiths begin to board, they leave all things behind, except for sins done in their lives, forever chains that bind. Alas, the ghost train's time is short, as night draws to a close. The souls remain must find the woods before the roster crows. The spectral, grim train crew contends against the dawning day. A hidden tunnel is revealed. The train soothes on its way. It travels to the river Styx, deep in the earth, great grave, where Charon ferries crawl the dead across the hateful wave. The weary naked souls detrained, pay the boatman's fare, they cross the river, enter gates, and vanish in despair. Yet in that endless darkest hour, there one who won't condemn, the wife of Hades. The wife of Hades hears the cries of souls and pities them. And if one hears the whistle blow in autumn's misty veil, that sleepless mortal may perceive the ghost train's mournful wail. And when man meets his demise, he needs not ever fear. The ghostly train never fails to come back every year.
And ticket sales will be on Chicago Junction's Facebook page.
I think we should give Brian a big round of applause because while the people that are listening to this can't see it, Brian is just showing off how good his new glasses are.
Yeah.
Because this is what was it about
like
1 point
type.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's just,
You need a
pardon the
microscope to
expression,
read
a shade larger than the micro print on the back of a dollar bill.
Yeah, it looks like a bug walk across it.
Brian will know the answer to this question. They talk about the pennies on a dead sailor's eyes. Why were the pennies put there?
To help pay his passage.
Because if you didn't give Charon the 2 coins, you didn't get ferried across the river Styx.
That's correct.
Yep.
And who heard of sailors having anything points in their pocket?
Well, the crew had to come up with it, right?
That's it.
Yeah, well, hopefully that they weren't needed while the ship was afloat.
Do we have any parting words, sir?
No.
A trivia question:
Yes.
who was Skimbleshanks? Skimbleshanks was the railway cat who was responsible for making sure the train left the station on time and the Royal Mail was not disturbed.
He must have just heard.
No, I actually took my wife to see cats.
That's what I said. You must have just listened to the record real soon.
No, I actually took her there as part of our anniversary.
Well,
Excuse me.
And,
okay.
and they made a very poor replica of a steam locomotive.
Let's go home.
Yes.
Let's bring the train into the station.
Hey, John.
Takes a while to get it started. All those orange lights up in front of the power surge, so he's got to find the right button.
Yeah.
He dozed off.
I put him to sleep.
Another lively episode.
Well, I thought it was kind of interesting to use. You know, because trains. Ghost trains are always associated.
Oh, I know Hope Park. I'll be there.
Chicago does have a ghost train.
These
Are you
One of my great friends before we lost him was Rich Crow, and he would always tell the story of the Lincoln Ghost Train.
We also had a story in the Riverside, too.
As our express comes into the terminal, we want to thank you for joining us on our journey through the wonderful world of trains. Chicago Junction is a production of the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network and can be heard on the web can be heard on the web at www.windycityhometown.com, where you can listen to tonight's broadcast and a sample of our past episode. You can also sample some of our other fine programs that are being offered. Until December, when we come back and journey to Chicago Junction, I'm your announcer, Brian Blue, saying happy rails to you, and good night, Mr. Ryan, wherever you are.
You have been listening to Chicago Junction on the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network from the John DeVita Broadcast Center on Monday, October the 9th, the year 2019. Chicago Junction was produced and directed by John DeVita, and our special thanks to the executive producer of Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network, Mr. John Chikanda. This broadcast was pre-recorded on Wednesday, October the 9th, the year 2019. Until next time, friends, please be safe, and thanks for listening.